3 La Sportiva Mountaineering boots. They all start with the letter G and they all look pretty similar. So we kind of thought we better explain what these are for, what the differences are and what routes you might climb in them. So 3 boots, 3 routes. So this latest range of La Sportiva boots is really quite groundbreaking. Now, like I say, everyone comes to the shop and wonders what the differences are, and I'm hopefully going to explain that, but they're all quite specific. So I'll start by explaining the things that run across them all, that they've all got in similar. As you can notice, they've all got a zip-up gaiter on the front. They've all got this boa system, and the soles and the base of the boot are all fully rigid and will take a semi-automatic or automatic crampon, so that's a B3 boot. The other thing that's really quite interesting about these boots is each one of them is pretty much groundbreaking, or at least leading or nearly leading the field in terms of weight for warmth in its area. So what are they all called? This is the G Tech, this is the G Summit, and this is the G2 Evo. So quick overview, really light, nimble, easy to use, somewhere in the middle, and then this is a big double boot for higher mountains. Let's go into a bit more specifics than that though. So I'm going to start by talking about the G Tech. Now, this is probably the one that's got everyone the most excited in the shop at the moment. So one of these boots, I think it's in a size 8, weighs about 630 grams. That's like a third lighter than the classic Nepal cubes that you'll see everyone using. Like, they're still a great boot, they're a workhorse, but if you don't want that big heavy weight on your foot, then G Tech just feels absolutely incredible. So when you see a boot this thin and this light, you instantly think it's not going to be warm enough for what it's designed for. It's designed for hard Scottish mixed, ice, continental ice and things like that. In fact, something that was really interesting was recently in one of the competitions, the ice climbing competitions they had worldwide, Jeff Mercier, a La Sportiva athlete, wore these in the competitions. You'll nearly see everyone else wearing fruit boots, you know, the ones that look like rock boots with a crampon bolted on them. And that's because these weigh pretty much the same, but give you all the support and weatherproofing that you need to climb in the mountains. The sole on this is really nicely designed. So what they've done is they've got it really quite thin, so you actually get a bit closer to the crampon. You know, with rock boots, when you like the thin ones and you can feel the sort of sensitivity on the rock, you can nearly do that with these boots while wearing crampons. Tiny little edge, you know where you're placing it. But there's been some amazing reports of people wearing these on maybe easier routes as well, because who doesn't want to feel lighter on the walk-in and going along the easier ridges? There's always benefits there as well. A famous saying of a pound on the foot is 10 in the bag, so why not have the lightest thing you can get on your feet? Another great thing about this sole is, even though it climbs really well, you can, if you're not wearing crampons, got a nice climbing zone there. If you do wear it out, it's fully resolable, and they can also do it in sections. You don't have to do the whole lot if you've only worn out the front or the back. So that's a nice sort of, you know, eco thing as well. You don't have to get a whole new boot, just get it resoled and it gets worn thin. So inside they've got the core wrap sort of thermal lining. I don't really know what that means, but it certainly seems to trap some good hot air in there. And with the insert that's inside, I think it's 5mm carbon, which will really sort of hold some heat into the boot as well. Now, moving on, the most impressive, important thing I think with these, other than the weight, is the boa system. Now this goes across all of them, so what I'm saying now stands true with all of them. What you find when you go Scottish winter climbing, I found anyway, or winter climbing, ice climbing, all that sort of thing, is you walk into the base, you're quite warm, you get to the base of the route and you get your laces really tight, so it keeps your heel down and you can climb well. For me, it's usually a ticking clock till my feet just go numb, whether it's cold or not, because I've got this area so tight to keep my heels down. So it might not be that cold a day, I'm gonna get numb toes because there's not enough blood flow. The boa system is ingeniously put on the outside. Now I'll show you inside this in a minute, but basically you click this in, crank it. You can do this in the biggest, thickest gloves you know, dead easy to do, and it will just crank all the way and push you right into the heel. Now the really cool bit is you've just led the hardest pitch of your life. You've cranked them so tight, toes are going numb. Basically that's the same as the laces being completely undone. You pull that, it completely releases. You can stand there, slopping your feet around, moving your toes, getting all the blood flowing again, and your feet warm up. I've got a good friend who climbs a lot harder than me who's got a pair of these, and he says it's actually the warmest boot he's ever worn. Now what he means is it's not obviously got the same amount of insulation as his big fat double boots, but because of that, and he can keep getting the blood flowing throughout the day, his feet have stayed a lot warmer in these than much thicker boots that might have had laces and pulled them in tight. Now the outer gaiter, this is brilliant. So They're not claiming this is fully waterproof. However, everyone that I've spoken to says their feet are staying totally dry. So don't quote me on that, but the outer face seems to shed loads of water. They walked through streams and puddles, been absolutely fine. Nice waterproof zip on there. I think they probably don't claim fully waterproof because of zips and boas and things, but no one seems to have got wet yet. Now inside there as well, I'll show you what's happening in here. Once the zip has been unzipped and you've cranked it really tight with the boa, you've also got a really good Velcro tab. So the boa holds the front of the foot there and sort of down into the heel really nice and tight. But this Velcro closure really gives you quite a lot of support around the upper ankle. Particularly good if you're climbing sort of vertical ice and you want that support all the way through the boot. So finally with the G-Tech, the other thing to notice about this is it is a bit of a slimmer fit than you'll get in these and maybe something like that in a pull. So do bear with it. Again, my friend who got a pair was worried they were too tight at first, wore them around a little bit and just sort of accepted there is a tighter fit. It feels a bit slim, a bit narrow when you're cranked tight, but because you can loosen it on belays and for walk-ins, do bear with it. Have a little try at home, maybe in the shop, because this is an amazing piece of kit. So like I said, hard mix climbing, steep ice falls where you really want to feel nice and light, things like the Secret or something like that on Ben Nevis would be amazing in a pair of these, or maybe some of the steeper ice falls abroad. So moving on from the G-Tech to the G-Summit. Now, as you can see, they look really similar, don't they? So don't get confused. A lot of the features are the same. So same sort of water resistance, seems to keep you dry outer gaiter, same waterproof zip all the way up the front here. It's got the same external boa, which is really great. Cranks your heel down, keeps you warm, blah, blah, blah. Really good closure system as well with the Velcro tab on there. And then inside the boot, that's where it all starts to change. So this is really quite an interesting bit of kit. This is sort of modular. This is nearly 2 boots in one. You get both of these with them. That will allow you to change the warmth and the fit. So let's concentrate firstly on it being a cooler boot. So if you wear it with the big thick insole you get with it, you've got a single boot here. This is quite similar to the G-Tech, maybe a little bit warmer. There's quite a lot of insulation in there already and the outer of the boot. So that's going to keep you pretty warm, again, for sort of ice falls, a bit like the G-Tech and Scottish winter, maybe slightly colder, bigger things in the Alps as well. And the reason this insole is so fat is it's filling some of that void because there's quite a lot of space in there. There's more room for your feet to expand, wiggle your toes and keep warmer essentially. Now, if you want to step it up a gear, you're going to maybe do cold winter ascents in the Alps. You might even do one of the 2-day routes, things like that. Or possibly go above 4,000 meters up to 5,000, then you can make it into a double boot. Never wear this big thick insole and this inner boot at the same time. They even warn you on there. It's quite funny that it says use only without insole, so you don't forget. So this will make it into sort of a double boot. Slide that in there, and because they've come out of there, you've actually got the space to do that. So I think that's just genius. I mean, how many people we've seen in the shop before go, what are you going to do over the next few years? Oh, maybe a bit of Scottish winter, might go to the Alps, might go somewhere colder, and you have to really explain you might well need 2 boots. It's a lot of money, nothing's cheap anymore, you know. So this sort of 2 birds, 1 stone, brilliant. I actually also think this gives a lot of versatility more than outside what they've designed it for. So picture this again, you know, people have climbed on Ben Nevis, walking in from the down to the car park, it can be really quite warm and sweaty. As soon as you hit the snow line though, the CIC hut gets a lot colder. You'll see people put different layers on there and changing socks and things like that. You could walk in with just the insole, keeping it as like a single boot, get there and put the liner in. Hitting the snow line, a lot colder, and you're in a double boot. Yet altogether, even with the liner, it's still only 830 grams per boot. So that is still lighter than a pair of Nepal cubes. So lighter, warmer, more modular, probably better to climb in, still feels really nice and technical. Yeah, that is a real all-rounder. So the fit of this boot is a little bit different to the G-Tech. There is a bit more space in there. That's because, like I say, it expects bigger socks, expanding, sort of wiggling your toes around, getting that heat moving, and also, of course, getting the liner in there. Do experiment with this. You might need big, thick socks when you're using the insole, maybe thinner ones with a liner. I found I can generally cope with the same as long as you just crank it a little bit more. So I do really think that's sort of a game changer for a lot of people, especially on bigger trips when you're going away and, you know, it might be cold one day and not the next. So the sort of routes I imagine people doing these in, say you're going to do like the Cross Spur or the Eiger in winter, things like that in the Alps. They're multi-day routes for, well, most normal people. And And it's cold, and having double boots is really lovely for that. That's when you can even sleep in these in your sleeping bag, better than getting your foot straight into a freezing boot that's been left out all night. You might have that in there with you, keeping it nice and warm. But also, they're technical roots, they're hard. You want to feel your crampons on the points rather than just clumping around with a big warm boot. So you can still climb really nicely in that. Still got the low weight, but you've got the extra warmth as well. So then moving on. The warmest of the three, we're into the G2 Evo. So the G2 is an all-out double boot. You're not going to use just the insole in this, it's always with a liner, making it the warmest of the three. It's still sort of groundbreakingly light. I think it is 1,030 grams per boot, but you still get quite a lot of performance. It feels nice, nimble, light. You could probably still climb hard pitches on it, but this is designed to take you up to 6,000 meters. People have worn this for higher than that. I'm not going to recommend it. If you do it, fine. I know they've gone up to 7,000 in these. But what's really great about this is, again, I could still imagine you climbing ice falls or, you know, winter alpine routes in them because it's so light and it feels great to climb in. There are a couple of notable differences with this. When you actually unzip the outer gaiter, you will notice inside there is another boa. This is the only one of the three boots that's got two boas on it. Now, the reason for this is, again, when you're wearing these boots, they nearly always expect to have quite big gloves on. It's going to be really cold wherever you are. So the outer one is the one that really cranks you down into the heel, the bit that might cut off some circulation, so you can release that again on belays, warm your feet up. And the inner one, this kind of acts a bit like the Velcro straps did on the others, and that'd be harder to do with big gloves on, whereas the boa is always nice and easy. That bit doesn't seem to feel like it's cutting circulation off. That's more like supporting the ankle. It's this one that would cut off circulation. So that can be released. That one not so much because it's under the gaiter, but it doesn't matter as much. They have also with this bulked up the insulation. There is quite simply quite a lot more in there. I think there's an aluminium sort of lining to reflect more heat, keep it in there. A lot more insulation in the sole because obviously loads of the heat you will lose is because you're standing on ice and snow. So a lot of reflective heat there and a lot of insulation, but still keeping the weight really nice and low. And this will take you onto these higher peaks. You know, people can use them on Island Peak, Mirror Peak, things like that, Denali, and just, you know, there's some technical routes out there as well. You can do that in these, nice and close to your crampons, climb hard, keep warm, and got the lovely joy of taking the double boot off when you're in tents or in sleeping bags. You can keep the liner in there and keep you nice and warm. A lot of the insulation in the boot is a honeycomb, so as we all know, we are the ones who create the heat, and these are just ways of trapping it. So a honeycomb means that a lot of your hot air creating gets trapped in there while keeping weight right down. The outer face fabric has cordura in it, so it's nice and tough. Just scuffing it with crampons really should stand up to that. So here you can see the boot taken apart. This is the liner that keeps you nice and warm. I strongly suggest you put this on first, get it nice and tight, Velcro closure here, and then step into the boot. You watch people try and step into the liner while it's in the boot. It's nigh on impossible to get it just right. Also, a lot of the time you want to take it apart so it can dry overnight if you are in a tent on a multi-day route. And then you can keep this in your sleeping bag, like I say, keep it nice and warm. So putting that on and then in there is much nicer than going straight into a freezing cold boot that's probably spent the night outside. So 3 different boots for 3 different routes, all sort of game-changingly light and innovative. You've got the G-Tech here for the lightest, hardest things, or maybe the G2 Evo for big and cold. And if you're not quite sure, in the middle, the one that can just do a bit of everything, the G Summit.